World of Football. I'm joined by Olly May, who is, if you want to watch alongs that look like they're on Sky Sports, you can go to his channel. Like, a man's built a studio in his house, like I've never seen that done before. How are you doing, Olly?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good to be here. Hoping for another positive performance tomorrow. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm feeling optimistic at the minute.
I think that's good. Unfortunately for me, I'm dreading Sunday. I'm like, oh no. I'm scared.
That's going to be a really tough game.
I can't see Liverpool win. I honestly can't see Liverpool win, and that's a scary thing. Like last season, I don't think Arsenal beat us last season. Fantastic last season, and then going from a quadruple to this is just honestly the biggest drop off I've ever seen from a club in a long time. To go from 4 trophies to nothing.
It's difficult. I mean, it is almost the end of an era at Liverpool. A lot of players, obviously, are coming to the end of their spell there, and I think it's difficult because, like you say, to go from competing in literally every competition, at all times until the end of the season, to now being out of it all and playing for mid-table, it's going to be difficult, but who knows? I think there's a long way to go in terms of the rest of this season, so we'll see. Potentially top 4's out of the equation, but maybe not all European football.
No, and I've seen a lot of Liverpool fans who say they would rather finish 9th than have Conference League. I don't really want Conference League, but I think if Liverpool are in it, they win it. I think in Europa League we win it as well. I think a lot of money has to be spent, but unfortunately I cannot see it. I'm expecting the transfer window to be lied a lot of lies, and then Liverpool sign some awful midfielders. That's what I'm expecting. But we'll start off with the first game, because obviously this is a team which I've seen this season start off really well, and then the last couple, they've struggled to score. They've been conceding goals galore. United against Everton, and of course Everton, as per usual, crap. I love to see Everton do crap, but unfortunately I don't think they will go down because they've got Sean Dyche. But how do you feel about Everton? How Everton have done this season? Because for me, they've been god awful.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of my best mates is an Everton fan, and I sort of not cover the club quite a bit on my channel and things as well, but I know quite a bit about the club and its history, and sort of through the years following the club with me best mate. I'm not an Everton fan, but sort of it's almost like it's not a second team, but it's almost like a team that I know in and out pretty much, and it's interesting because there's been a lot of pressure on the owners and Bill Kenwright, Farhad Moshiri, and the rest of the board pretty much following last season's great escape almost. And I think nothing really has been done. Obviously, the Baxendale situation earlier with the fans again clashing, whatever happened there, we won't know, I don't think. But the board continues to be, I think, the problem at Everton, and that is going to translate onto the pitch. I mean, at the end of the day, football players play for a club. The club is as a business, and if the business isn't ran in a way that is profitable or sustainable, then players can only go as far as they can. I mean, the thing with, like you say, bringing in Sean Dyche is that Sean Dyche is a miracle maker. I mean, he will create something out of nothing. He has throughout his career, and I know at Burnley, obviously, they had their ups and downs as well, and obviously he did get relegated with Burnley. But the thing with Sean Dyche and Everton now is, like you say, I think he will keep them up because they've got a good enough squad of players. The problem is, following on to next season, the season after that, who knows what we're going to expect with Everton. I mean, obviously, Bradley Waldock's is well underway now, and who knows, next season could be, I think it is, I think it's yet to be confirmed, but will likely be their last at Goodison Park, and they could be playing Championship football. So there's a long way to go in Everton season, but I think Sean Dyche will keep them up, and I think I wouldn't put it against Everton to get something tomorrow. I really wouldn't.
For me, Everton this season, I think they've had a lot of problems. I think definitely the department they've struggled most with is the striker department. Calvert-Lewin cannot stay fit. The guy cannot stay fit. He will play 2 games and get injured for like a month again. They've got struggles there. I think their midfield's okay. I think a fullback, they've had a few issues. And I think the mentality at Everton is just completely wrong. I think Sean Dyche will set that up. I just think there were worse teams like Leicester, for example, which is something no one saw coming. Or West Ham, no one saw that coming. Those two could go down before Everton, in my opinion. But for me, Everton have been poor. I think they'll stay up. But going on to United now, get the flukiest result. I was expecting to get pummeled by United, but we actually pummeled them 7-0. And then since then, they haven't scored a Premier League goal till against Brentford, where I thought Brentford had one of their worst games this season. What's your thoughts on United been this season, and especially after that Liverpool game in the Premier League where they've struggled?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, that game was, I don't think it was a flash in the pan, because I think Liverpool always turn up against Manchester United, and Manchester United-Liverpool is one of the biggest fixtures in the Premier League calendar, no matter where the teams are. And I think Liverpool were well up for that game, as both sides should be. But the difference in that game is that Liverpool, I think, score very early in the second half to almost kill the game, and then United just crumble. And it was almost as if they knew. I know Bruno Fernandes came out and said that the players didn't give up, they wouldn't give up, but I think it was almost like they knew that was the end of that game. And with it being at Anfield and Liverpool, getting up for the occasion, well, you wouldn't expect them to score 7, but I think as soon as the game was out of United's reach, I think that's where they just crumbled. But they surprised me, Manchester United, this season. I mean, Ten Hag has done a fantastic job there. He's stabilised a club that, again, has ownership problems. A lot of the fans aren't too happy with the Glazers' ownership, and that still continues to go on. The last 2 or 3 minutes of the Carabao Cup final, that they're singing, we want Glazers out, and that pretty much tells the story of Manchester United's season. That, again, Ten Hag and Manchester United are still pushing, as they should be. They're a giant in football, up the table and in the Europa League as well. I expect them to go on and win that. So I think they surprised me in the fact that the transition under Ten Hag has been so rapid, but at the same time there are, sure enough, problems still, in the team, in the club, and in all sort of ways of life at Manchester United. And like you say, that Liverpool game showed their fragilities on the pitch as well, because Diego Dallo at times can be a bit sort of inconsistent. Defensively, we know they haven't really got a set centre-back pairing. Obviously, injuries have had a say in that as well. So they have confused me at times, Manchester United. You don't really know what you're going to get from them. And like you say, you mentioned there, they're 7-0. Since then, fell into to find the back of the net until Brentford. Does show that, maybe they are in, a bit of a poor patch of form at the wrong time of the season. So I think it'll be a very close, sort of intense game tomorrow. But I think I'd expect it to be a United win. But again, like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if Everton could get something.
But let's quickly do predictions. I'm actually going to go. I think it's going to be 3-1 United, but I think it's going to be close in the fact that I think the third will be very late. It'll be like 1-1, then 2-1 for like last stretches. Everton will try and get a goal, but then United will counter and get a third. What's your prediction for this game?
I think, my sensible prediction would be something similar. I should say that, United at home this season have been very good, and Rashford especially, always seems to find his best form at Old Trafford. So I would expect United to go on win. I'll go for 2-1. Similar to like you say, I think Everton will be in the game. I think they will compete for sure. Whether or not they can sort of win those individual battles and keeping players like Bruno Fernandes quiet, also Marcus Rashford as well, obviously, that I think could be the key for Everton if they are to get something. Because Everton themselves, they don't score many goals. And they haven't, like you say, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, they haven't really got a forward line that will score goals consistently, whereas Manchester United have got players that will score consistently. So if they can keep the individuals quiet, I think Everton will be in the game. But I'll go for a 2-1 United.
I think that's fair. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Everton got a draw. But I just think United now, after their Brentford game, I think they're going to keep on going. Casemiro, I think, still out, but Eriksen's back in training. That's good for them.
Yeah.
If we go to the next game now, let me just get the next game up. We've got Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, of course. Cooper looked like he might be in trouble, but he's the backing him, which I think is the right decision, because I don't think anyone else can do what Cooper's doing. I just think they've got maybe not the right players, and I think a lot of their players aren't gelling as much. And obviously, other teams around him have been good, but I've got to talk about Aston Villa, because Unai Emery, I think, has been one of the best appointments this year, because Gerrard, I loved Gerrard at Aston Villa. I loved seeing what he was doing, but to me, he just proved that, again, you've got to do small steps, and you can't do this massive step going from Rangers to Aston Villa, because it just didn't work. And I think Unai Emery's gone Aston Villa from crap to probably one of the best teams in the Premier League at the moment. What's your thoughts have been on Unai Emery and Aston Villa this season? Because I think they've been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Unai Emery is he's a very, very tactical coach, and like you say, you look at what Gerrard did at Aston Villa. When he had the fans behind him and the club behind him, and the players almost believing in his philosophy, it worked. Same with Lampard at Chelsea. Lampard was always going to sort of at one point or another be Chelsea manager, you would have thought, and obviously as he stepped up after Derby, you sort of thought, well, is it going to be enough in this league at a club like Chelsea? And it was almost the same with Gerrard at Aston Villa. Like you say, once he stepped up from the Scottish Premier League to the English Premier League, it was always going to be a tough ask. And when you have philosophy and sort of a philosophy and an idea of how you're going to play, that only works to a certain extent until the fans and the players start to lose interest or lose belief. And you sort of see that really with how it sort of fell apart. They were almost, same with Brendan Rodgers almost at Leicester. It almost looked like the intentions were there, but the players or the play style that was trying to be implemented wasn't quite sort of clicking. And the difference, I think, between, like you say, Gerrard and Unai Emery, is the just experience and dedication to ensuring that the small details and every single player is almost so well drilled that it can't go wrong almost. And that's been almost the success at Villa this season, is that they've not been sort of blowing teams away, but they've got the job done consistently, and that's why I think they're third in the league table for 2023. That they're third. That's really the dark horse of the Premier League this season that we've all missed. And that's because they haven't been blowing teams away. They've been just slowly but surely getting results and getting the job done. And I mean, full credit to Unai Emery. I think he's been fantastic.
Yeah, I really do. He's been fantastic. And going on to Nottingham Forest now. With Nottingham Forest, I was glad to see them get promoted. There's one player that I was looking forward to see at Aston Villa, at Forest, that we sold to them, which was Nico Williams, who was a right back for us, quite more attacking, and he hasn't been playing. I think Forest this season, though, I think they've struggled a lot in terms of scoring goals. I think Dennis now, another former Liverpool player, Wanyi, who we sold to Union Berlin, and then they got him from Union Berlin. I think with Forest this season, I think they've been struggling a lot in scoring goals. They've also had Dean Henderson, and then they got Navas, who I think is still a class keeper. But I think for me, I still think Forest will stay up, but they've got to invest more in the summer. But they can't just invest in random players. They've got to get players that suit his system, because I think a lot of these players, they got them just to replace the players that left on loan or whatever. And I don't think they really fit the way they play. But what's your thought on this game, though? Because this is I think a big game for Aston Villa, because Aston Villa you never know, Aston Villa could finish in Europe, and Forest could put a gap between the relegation zone. So what's your thought on this game?
Yeah, I think it's a huge one. Like you say, I think you look at the two clubs; they've both got very different ambitions this season, and it's one of those games where it's a 6 pointer in the sense of, like you say, that they're all at different aspects of the table, but Nottingham Forest are going to need points if they're going to put themselves, in a place to stay up. And that sounds obvious, I know, but they're going to need points quickly. Is pretty much what I'm trying to say. That they can't get away with almost getting to the end of the season and hoping almost that they've got that mentality, that squad sort of togetherness to get them through certain fixtures. Because, like you say, they had a squad last season predominantly of lone players. It worked very well for them. Steve Cooper did a fantastic job. And they had to rebuild and restructure. I mean, everyone looks at the 20 odd signings that they made ahead of the Premier League season, but they had to. They didn't have enough players. And only a few players that remained at the club from last season. Lewis Graben, I think, still there. Sam Surridge as well. Two strikers that haven't really had much of a say this season. Sam Surridge, I know, has been involved a bit more. But yeah, there's not been a cohesion almost between Nottingham Forest and the players this season. And so I think this game is going to be a huge one because it's a chance, I think, for Forest to actually go out and play against a side that aren't just going to sit back, but are actually going to, it's going to be free-flowing football. And I think this game as a whole is going to be a very, very good game. I'd expect Villa to win it, but like I say, when both sides are desperate for points, it makes for a very good game of football. And, who knows? I think we could see quite a few goals in this one, despite, as you say, Forest being one of the lowest scorers in the league.
Very, very true. In terms of prediction for this game, though, there's one player which obviously I've been keeping up a lot with because one of the people I work with, he's Jamaican and he's used to play in the Jamaican Premier League. Used to be a very good former keeper, and back in his academy days, played with Leon Bailey. So Leon Bailey is one player that I've, and he's obviously came in contact with Leon's dad, Craig Butler, who's his agent. But they've had a falling out now. But we still talk a lot about Leon Bailey, and I think Leon Bailey is one player that I've been disappointed with because he's not performed for Aston Villa for how much they spent on him, and he hasn't performed for Jamaica either. So that's one player I do want to see start clicking for Aston Villa because he does need to click.
Yeah, he's someone that I think has sort of raw ability, Leon Bailey, and I think when he first made his move to the Premier League, I sort of thought, well, it will, I think, take him a while to settle into this league. That is almost, when you play in the Bundesliga, you get so many chances, not so many chances, but a lot more chances than you do in the Premier League. Whereas in the Premiership, you get one chance, one slight, almost not even half chance at times to get your shot away, to get that, pass through, whatever it is. And it's got to be spot on. And I think it's just not really sort of clicked for him. I think I remember him, I think it was Newcastle that he sort of smashed the bar. And I sort of thought, well, score there and it's a whole different game. I think it was Newcastle. But at that point, they're in the game. And then I think they went on and, lost it by a couple of goals. So it's one of them where I think he will click. And I think he'll be a fantastic sort of asset for Villa. But they've struggled with injuries this season as well, Aston Villa. A lot of key players have been out. You look at Coutinho's not been fit and playing each week. Buendia's sort of been out as well. And someone else that I'm forgetting in the middle of the park as well. But they've got some fantastic players that haven't actually been playing as regularly as perhaps Emery and Gerrard would have liked them to. So I think that goes down to it as well, that when you've not got the same side out at all times, it can sort of almost when you're not in your best form, you want to go into a side that is sort of going to fit. But when things are changing around you as well, when it's a new league and it's a new sort of country as well, it might sort of be a bit too much to sort of get you the best out of a player. So yeah, I think he will start to pick up form next season. I think he'll be a fantastic player for Villa, and like you say, they might have European football as well.
Yeah, and in terms of prediction, it's a bit hard to call this one because Aston Villa have been so good. Forest need to bounce back. They severely need to bounce back. But I just have a feeling that Aston Villa are going to keep rolling on, and I'm going to go a bit different. I'm actually going to go a clean sheet for Martinez, and I'm going to go 2-0.
Yeah, I think it pretty much the same. Same sort of scoreline would be what I'm going to go for. I'll go for a 2-0 or a 3-0. Probably 2. I think I'll match you with that one. And yeah, I think again, Forest struggling to score, especially away from home. Their away form this season has been, if it wasn't for the results at home, they'd be bottom of the league, and I think even contention is staying up by now. So, their away form almost, there's no free hits, there's no free games at this stage of the season against anybody. But I think, I'd be very surprised if Forest were to get something from this game. So, yeah, 2-0, and I should think Ollie Watkins will get another one.
He's been outrageous. Like, I wish he was this good as he was, because I still remember that game last game of the season. If he had his shooting boots on, Liverpool would have won the league, because there were so many 1v1s he had against Man City. He just shot like crap, but he's getting much better now, which is good to see. But next game we've got, of course, Brentford, who lost to United, and Newcastle, who've just been ridiculous this season, beating West Ham 5-1. They've been so good. What's your thoughts been on Newcastle this season? Because I've got to honestly say, I am now 99.9% convinced we will see Newcastle in the Champions League next season.
Yeah, that's a big shout, and I think I would now back them to get Champions League football. I think at the start of the year, with obviously the World Cup just finishing, I always sort of wondered. Obviously, I know Eddie Howe very well from his time at Bournemouth, and at times they'd have a great start to the season and sort of peter out at Bournemouth, and especially in the Premiership anyway. Eddie Howe's known for taking his sides over to Dubai for a winter sort of mid-season training camp, and I did sort of wonder whether that would happen at Newcastle again. It did, and it always seems to be that he'll come back with Newcastle and they'll sort of underperform for 4 or 5 weeks, or not Newcastle obviously, but Bournemouth, underperform, and then suddenly the season is sort of petering out. There was a shout at one point that Bournemouth could get European football under Eddie Howe when they finished 9th in the Premier League, and like I say, that there was a genuine chance there, but it seems to be a whole new beast, at Newcastle, and a whole new sort of Eddie Howe, where he's had that time to sort of look back at, and I'm in no way criticising Eddie Howe's technique as their manager, by the way. I mean, what an incredible! I mean, I think one of the greatest managers of all time. I think he will end up, being England manager, and will end up in that conversation with the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson, Wenger, Guardiola. I genuinely think he will end up in that conversation. And like I say, I didn't expect Newcastle to continue this incredible form, but it's almost like Eddie Howe has learned from everything through the years. He's picked up so many sort of, moments that he's sort of seen and relived, that this is Eddie Howe's moment at Newcastle to take them to Champions League football. And it's just unbelievable, isn't it, when you think that when he came in, Newcastle were on the verge of going down. And now they're on the verge of playing against the likes of PSG, Real Madrid, and who knows who else in the Champions League. It's remarkable, and I do genuinely believe that this isn't the end of Newcastle's journey either. I genuinely think they will. We know they've got the backing now. If they have the money to put into the transfer market, I do think they will become serious contenders for the league in a couple of years. So I've been really impressed with Newcastle, and I'm surprised, but also not surprised, if that makes sense.
No, I think I'm not surprised either with the new owners and everything. I think though in the summer, if they get like a very strong left back, because Dan Burn's been fantastic, but they need more of a left back who can attack. Dan Burn just more sits back and defends. Maybe 1 or 2 more midfielders, because I don't think they've got good enough backup for if Bruno's injured. Maybe a right winger, but I think they've done so good this season, and I think I'm 100% convinced that they will get European football. It's either the Champions League or Europa League, and of course they're ahead of Man United now, so I'm hoping they solidify that 3rd place, and if somehow we get 4th, we take over United, but very unlikely. But Eddie Howe, a lot of people will say maybe it's crazy to think that about Eddie Howe, but I honestly do think that he's been the most impressive English manager I've seen, because yes, Potter did very well with Brighton, right? And then went to Chelsea, and then that didn't work. But I think Eddie Howe's done good at Bournemouth. He's done good at Newcastle. He might bring Newcastle to the Champions League. And I honestly could see, if they make the right transfers in the summer, I could honestly see, I'm not saying they're going to win the league, but I think Newcastle could definitely win a trophy next year.
Yeah, I think they were on the verge of it, weren't they, at the Carabao Cup final, that you thought maybe that would be, an unbelievable sort of second season, or, first full season at Newcastle for Eddie Howe. And you did think that maybe it was written in the stars for them to win it, when you look at Ten Hag and Manchester United, and was that a step too far for Ten Hag so early on, with, Manchester United and Newcastle being two sides that you wouldn't expect to be in the Carabao Cup final at the start of the season. But yeah, they came that close to it then, and I think they will go, one step closer in the following years. Whether it's next season, whether it's season after that. I don't think necessarily they will go too far in the Champions League, but who knows? You look at the likes of Benfica, who are doing unbelievable things this season. You look at Club Brugge as well. I think it was last season, or was it this season? No, it was definitely not this season because of Scott Parker. But must have been last season. I think that Club Brugge were fantastic in the Champions League. Napoli this season could go all the way in the Champions League. A lot of people are backing them. So there are clubs now that can compete against some of the best sides and clubs in world football. And I think Eddie Howe and Newcastle have everything in order, in sort of a sense, to go out and actually put their plan into action and actually do that. And I think we're seeing that this season, and that's why they're third. The table doesn't lie; they are deservedly third. And like you say, they are now on the verge of playing Champions League football, which I can only see them impressing there.
Yeah, 100%. And then we go on to Brentford. I think Brentford this season have been very impressive to me, beating Man United 4-0, beating Liverpool 3-0. They've been smashing teams. They've got points off Arsenal, even though I'm still convinced that was not off. That was it offside? I can't remember exactly what happened, but the lines were really dodgy that game. But I think Brentford have been very good, but I think Brentford this season they've dropped off a little bit. I think, will Tony be banned? I still don't know if Tony's going to be banned for his betting. He's been very impressive, but for me, I think Brentford have started to drop off a bit. What's your thoughts on Brentford being just the beginning of the season till now? Because I think they've started to drop off a bit.
Yeah, I think the results lately haven't been ideally what they'd be looking for, performances to match as well. Like you said, I think that cloud that's hanging over Ivan Toney is hanging over Brentford, because Ivan Toney is, Brentford to a sense. Dominic Solanke was out for Bournemouth earlier this season, and they just couldn't even put a performance together. They couldn't almost put a structure together. And I think that correlates to what is happening at Brentford as well. I know Ivan Toney's still there. I know he's still playing, but he's got this sort of 2-game ban on the horizon as well for a yellow card if he gets the next. I think he's 2 yellow cards away, or 1 yellow card away now. Not too sure, but he's got a tightrope there, and obviously the ongoing sort of betting allegations as well, that of course who knows where that's going to go. That is obviously a matter that he and his agents and his representatives and lawyers will go through, and that is going to affect the player and the man himself, and that's something that I think Brentford have almost had to deal with as a club as well, because like I say, you look at certain players, Harry Kane, Tottenham Hotspur, Solanke at Bournemouth, Ollie Watkins almost at Aston Villa. Ivan Toney is Brentford's sort of catalyst for performances, and I think really that that is the reason why they are starting to sort of drop off, because there are concerns for Ivan Toney, and you also have to look at the fact that they overperformed or outperformed at the start of the season, and now perhaps they are just performing as we expected Brentford, or a club the size and calibre of Brentford, to perform. So it's almost that they outperformed for so long, and the first game of the season, or was it second game of the season, I think, against Manchester United, 4-0 like you say there, that was such an incredible sort of performance, and almost statement from Brentford that it would be very difficult for them to keep that up all season. And when you look at, I'm sure we'll get on to Brighton, but when you look at clubs like them, and we just mentioned Eddie Howe's Newcastle, there are so many clubs outperforming. Aston Villa got under the radar. We mentioned them, and now they're sort of being noticed for being a real underdog and contender for European football. I think it's difficult for Brentford to sort of keep themselves almost above water with those sorts of clubs, when perhaps a lot of people, when they went up to the Premier League, expected them just to become one of those clubs that would sort of hover around the bottom six. So yeah, I think they've been a breath of fresh air, but also a club that you sort of feel that they wouldn't keep that up forever, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And no, I think they've been impressive. I just think they've dropped off a little bit, and we'll see how they do tomorrow. But in terms of predictions, I'm gonna go the same as the United result, but opposite direction. I'm gonna go Brentford 1, Newcastle 3, because I think Newcastle are just gonna keep it up. They're gonna. I can't see them dropping any more points. Probably against Arsenal, but that might be a draw again. But yeah, no, I'm gonna go 3-1 Newcastle for this one. What about you?
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of goals. I think Callum Wilson and Isak is a great sort of problem to have for Eddie Howe. Whether or not he goes with either of them, they're both in fine form and fine spirits after that West Ham game. So I think there will be goals there. Brentford, I think with them obviously being the home side, I think we will see a Brentford side that will come out and take the game to Newcastle, which will open it up for both sides. So I'm going to go for a 3-2 to Newcastle. Like you say, I think they will score goals, and I think they'll just about edge it. 3-2.
I think 3-2 will be a very entertaining game. Then we go on to Fulham and West Ham. Of course, Fulham for me, out of Brentford and all that, have been the most impressive, but it just kind of gone a bit downhill now with... I still don't understand what Mitrovic was doing against United. Like that was... The FA want him banned for more than 8 games, which I think is a bit ridiculous. I think 8 games is more than enough, but he was very thuggish against the referee, and they're not going to have him now, which I think is a major problem, because we can see how good Mitrovic was in the Championship last season. I don't care if it's just the Championship. This season in the Premier League, he's been showing that he can still do in the Premier League and do decent levels. I think Fulham have been very, very impressive. Even they could get European football this season, and I hope they do. And of course, West Ham, I do not understand what's gone wrong. Just like Liverpool, but even just like Liverpool in terms of a massive drop off, it's been a drop off of a cliff, going from being Europa League, then getting Conference League football, and then just dropping off a cliff completely, and now they're literally in the bottom 3. What's your thoughts been on? Let's start off with Fulham though. What's your thoughts been on Fulham this season?
Yeah, well, starting with Fulham, I think they've again been another club. I didn't mention them a minute ago, but another club that has outdone their expectation. A lot of people thought that when they got back to the Premier League, which was inevitable really last season, that this season they'd struggle. They could go straight back down again. And they have been a real sort of almost a trailblazer to say that, look, you can get promoted from the Championship and go straight to the very top of the Premier League if you're good enough. And they've been playing very good football. They've got some fantastic players. They got the best out of players that perhaps you wouldn't really think would be performing at the levels that they are. They look at Andreas Pereira as the obvious one, but also Willian. To bring him back to the Premier League, and as a free agent as well, and then to sort of get the performances, the fitness out of him, the not just the goal contributions, but the all-round sort of performance gelling into a Fulham team, is unbelievable. We saw what Fulham did the last time they got to the Premier League, when they were signing players like Andre Schürrle, and it didn't work, and they were signing players, I think it was it in midfield, was it Renato Sanchez, I believe it was. Fantastic players. It might have been I'm not too sure, but they signed quite a few players that you thought, wow, they're going to really put something together here. Alfie Mawson was another one. I think he's now in League One. I'm not too sure, but they had an incredible sort of transfer market that failed massively a few years ago, and then they got back to the Premier League this year. But they've done it in a similar sort of way, but a lot more calm and collected approach under Marco Silva, and they've been fantastic. They really, really have been fantastic, and like you say, I think they will struggle massively without Mitrovic. Obviously, Willian as well was missing for the Bournemouth game, and you could see how much they struggled there. Massive win for Bournemouth. That first half, they were fantastic. Dropped off in the second, but Fulham, I would be surprised now if they were to get European football based on, like you say, that the fact that there is no Mitrovic for another 7 games now. There's no Marco Silva for 2 games. I'd be very surprised if they would get European football. But again, hats off to them. They've been fantastic this season. They really have.
100%. And looking at and now going on to West Ham, we're talking about teams having a drop off a cliff. What do you think's happened at West Ham? Because going from the Europa League, then the Conference League, and then finishing 6th, 5th, to now being in the bottom 3, what has gone wrong at West Ham? And surprisingly enough, I'm actually surprised that Moyes has not been sacked yet. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, same with me. I think he's a great manager and a great guy. Doesn't mean it's going to fit at every single side, and it's not going to last forever. I think that there are times where you sort of see that, as I mentioned before, players, they have to buy into the ideology and the methods that the manager is trying to set out. And I think that West Ham, it just either the players aren't buying into it or it isn't working. And it just seems to be that they're getting. It's almost, to me, I feel like that they're trying to present themselves as a free-flowing sort of strong playing out from the back sort of style side, but that isn't what West Ham are about, or at least that doesn't look like that. What they're about and what they've got the players and the facilities to do. Several times against Newcastle, they're trying to play out from the back and they're just getting caught. And you look at the players they've got, playing out with the likes of Aguard and Zuma. I don't think that's their best sort of. I know, really, you could put a manager in there that plays that sort of way. I'm sure they get the best out of it, but I don't think, Moyes and West Ham would get the results really doing that. You look at how Sean Dyche got Burnley in European football. I know they didn't make it to the group stages, but Sean Dyche got European football or Europa League playoffs because they made the most and got the best out of the players, the assets they had, and played a style that worked. West Ham, it almost looks like they're trying to force a sort of style of football that isn't natural to West Ham, or at least not to the whole of the squad. And then you mix that with Mikel Antonio. He's not been in good form this season. He's not scored the goals that I'm sure they would have hoped. Skamaka's not really had much of an opportunity almost, and then when he's come in, he's not really clicked for him. So I think they've struggled. Maxwell Cornet, I think, is another one. I know he struggled with injuries, but it just hasn't clicked for one reason or another at West Ham. And I think, again, they're another side that I think are too good to go down. But then there are so many sides in that relegation battle that are too good to go down on paper. So some of them, if not a few of them, will go down. I'd be surprised. First of all, I'd be surprised if Moyes lasts until the end of the season. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Nothing against David Moyes, but I'd be surprised if he's still West Ham manager come end of May. But I would be surprised if West Ham stay up. I really would. I know they, on paper, are too big to go down, but the performances aren't giving me belief that they'll stay up.
Yeah, literally 100%. I was shocked to see the news that he was in charge against Fulham, but maybe it's the fact that they don't see anyone else coming in or can't. And I can understand that, but I don't know. Listen, in terms of predictions, I have a sneaky feeling that there's no Mitrovic, there's no Marco Silva, there's all this kind of stuff going on. I have a feeling that it's going to be a shared game, and I think it's going to be my first draw prediction of today. I think it's going to be 1-1, but I just can't see West Ham winning, even with the problems at Fulham. Like, none of their players, make me go, oh wow, they're going to do well. Like, I think, look at the players at Souček, Kufar, the kind of players, they've just fallen off. Antonio's fallen off. Skamaka's injured and likely not going to have surgery for them. Aguerd, I think, is a good defender, but you see him do that really, really good back header back of the keeper, and then stupidly gives the ball straight to Newcastle to score. I just think the mentality is there, and I think the mentality was still going. So I'm gonna go 1-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 0-0. 0-0 or 1-0 Fulham, but I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham keep this game goalless. Despite conceding 5 the other day, I think they'll be a lot more precise in what they do, and a lot more assured of themselves. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a very cagey game. Like you say, Fulham haven't got their best side out, so 0-0.
All right, then we move on to some more. 2 teams have had managers sacked recently. You've got Wolves and Chelsea. Wolves, for me, they've been impressive and unimpressive. I was very impressed with their 3-0 win against, of course, Liverpool, but the problem is that everyone's beating Liverpool, so I don't think that's a major accomplishment. But they've been good this season. I think they've still, to me, struggled in the striker department. Raul Jimenez has looked completely different since he's cracked his skull. I think he's got this thing. I think there's a mentality problem. I think there's a fear in Jimenez that he's going to damage himself again. That's why I don't really think he goes for headers anymore, even though he's got the thing around his head. I think if I cracked my skull in a football match, I'd be on my head constantly going, what if I damage my skull again? They've had a problem there. I think Costa has not been that impressive, and their new signing of Atletico Madrid, Cunha, I think he's been alright, but I think he's been playing more wide than for the centre. Yeah, Wolves for me have been okay. Chelsea, I think Chelsea's the one that really shocked me. I thought Liverpool, this drop off is kind of expected with the awful midfield and a lot of old players, but Chelsea, with the amount of money they spent, it's probably the most amount of money I've ever seen a club spend in January. And they're 11th, and that is actually really shocking to me. Potter being sacked, of course they've brought Frank Lampard back. I think to me that's the right decision until they get a proper manager. But it's very interesting. What's your thoughts been there on Wolves this season though? Sacking their manager, bringing a new manager in. I think they've looked again another club that's been up there, kind of the top half, kind of dropping off.
Yeah, I think when you look at Wolves on paper, like you say, they've got some good technical players. They've got players that can, provide a performance consistently in this league. You look at their midfield is arguably their strongest asset, has been for the last few years especially. And I think when you look at Wolves as a side, as a collective, like you say, the goals aspect, they are struggling to score goals. That again, one of the lowest scorers in the league. Away from home, that they're struggling, and I do think that defensively, they're not as sort of stable as they once were. So when you put all of that together, it gives for a very uneasy sort of viewing. And I think that's been the story in the world almost for Wolves. They have got players that can provide quality, and Adama Traore obviously coming back and sort of picking up a bit of form is promising. But I don't know. I think again, Potente's had injuries. They've not had a consistency there this season. Whether or not they'll get over the line, I'm not sure. I think that they're an interesting side, and I think it is a transitional phase that they're going to need to go through, similar to Chelsea.
And what's your thoughts been on Chelsea this season? Of course, 2 managers sacked in one season, which I think is ridiculous, and being 11th place, spending ridiculous amounts of money in January, signing Enzo Fernandez for a record fee, all that kind of stuff, and still being this poor. What do you think's happened at Chelsea this season? Because it's ridiculous.
I think it's been a lack of almost experience from an owner that's come in and almost seen, the potential of what clubs are doing in the footballing world and wanting to go in, all guns blazing and try and put together almost an American draft sort of side. Chelsea have got an unbelievable squad of players, arguably the best or one of the best in, or most exciting, you could say, in the Premier League. They've got, on paper, world-class players in every position, and it's not really hit, home, really, has it? I mean, they've got some fantastic players. Badashile not really, Koulibaly not really sort of as sort of comfortable as you'd think they would look at the back end. Of Fernandez has been sort of on and off. Players like Mudryk has barely had a run in in form. It's not been anything like, I think, what a lot of people expected. Bringing Aubameyang back was, I think, a move that I know that was before most of the new transfers, but that to me was a strange transfer, a strange move. I didn't expect it to work out when it happened, and I'm not surprised it didn't. But yeah, they've got some fantastic players, and like you say, they have spent so much money, and then they got rid of Tuchel to bring in Potter, who has thrived off of not having a lot of money. He plays a great brand of football, an attacking, really direct philosophy of playing, and that could have worked with the players that he had if he had enough time to put it together. I genuinely think Potter would have been a success at Chelsea in 2 or 3 years. And the problem is they've signed so many players that Top Olly's come in and his his consortium have come in and said, we're going to buy the best players in every position that have the best future. Players like Badiashile, like Enzo Fernandez, Mudryk. They brought in these sort of players, and it's just not happened for them because they're looking for the now at Chelsea, but it isn't going to be now with the players they've got in. And I think Lampard is a good player, a good manager that was a good player at Chelsea that will just steady the ship. I think that's what he needs to do. So they'll be okay.
Yeah, in terms of Chelsea, for me, I think one of the biggest problems I've believed is, and I still believe to this day, that the signings in January were not Potter signings. I believe it was Todd Bowley doing all of it, because I honestly don't think Potter, if he had the choice, he wouldn't have gone for Enzo Fernandez. He would have gone for a more midfielder. I think Enzo Fernandez is going to be a baller and he will be one of the best midfielders in the world in a couple of years. But I don't believe a lot of these transfers were made by Potter, and I, of course, I'm kind of with you in terms of, I think, yes, they were doing really, really badly, and I think maybe the way he was playing wasn't working with the players he's got right now, but I honestly think they would have done very, very well with Potter, and I just think that I still believe they haven't got his players. I think they're Todd Bowley signings, not him. In terms of prediction for this game, from what I've seen this season, for me with Chelsea is their problem's not been conceding goals, it's been scoring them. And I think same with Wolves, they seem they can't score either. So I'm gonna go for a repeat of the Chelsea game, Liverpool, and I'm gonna go another 0-0. They can't score.
Yeah, I think I'll go 1-0 Chelsea on the basis that I think they'll have one bit of quality from someone that'll step up. But it's not going to be a high scoring game, I don't think. I would expect another Chelsea clean sheet, but I don't think it's going to be a comfortable game for Chelsea going forward either. So 1-0, 0-0. I wouldn't be surprised for either.
And then we move on to who's next on the list. And we move on to a team which actually I live right round the corner because obviously I live in Brighton, so the Amex is literally a 5 minute bus ride. So Tottenham, Brighton, Tottenham this season again, another team that has been a proper roller coaster of a team. Like they've had a few good games and then go like 3 or 4 bad games and good bad, and I just don't understand what's going on with them. I thought they looked good against Everton, and then again, banger by Michael Keane. I just don't understand what's going on with them. Conte, the first manager I've seen say it how it really is. Like, really said how bad it was at Tottenham, and the players just don't care. The owners don't care. All this kind of stuff. And Brighton this season, I thought maybe getting rid of Potter or Potter leaving is going to impact them. No, they got De Zerbi from Shakhtar Donetsk, and this guy's been one of the best managers I've seen in this season. Again, Brighton could be another one who could get top 4. I don't think they will though, because I think Newcastle and United are too good, but they will get European football. But sort of going with Tottenham. What's your thoughts on Tottenham being this season? Because they've been like just a proper roller coaster. They've not been consistent.
Yeah, I think they've not been. I think Tottenham for me are a side that have struggled through the years, not because of the backing, but almost because of the lack of ambition from an outsider's point of view. It looks like some of the players, some of the managers that come in that are happy to sort of be comfortable in the top 4 and to get Spurs into the top 4 and that be job done sort of thing. We got your Champions League football. That's the minimum. And also, the backing has been there from Daniel Levy. It's just not been as sporadic and as sort of intentional as other clubs. Other clubs, like we mentioned Tom Olly there, whether that's the right way to go about it, probably not as well. But they've made transfers, they've made signings. You look at Richarlison. A lot of people said that Tottenham would do well this season because of some of the players that they brought in. Dan Juma, obviously, as well, has not really had a chance. So they don't make any what I would call marquee signings where you think, wow, what a player that's going to be at Tottenham Hotspur. The only player that I remember, the last time I remember watching a Tottenham game thinking, oh, wow, I can't wait to see how he plays for Tottenham, was Gareth Bale when he came back on loan, and it cost them barely nothing. And that's the thing I think with Spurs is they've got a consistently strong Premier League side, and they will consistently get top 6, top 7 football finishes, and Champions League football. But the thing with them is they don't seem to sort of push the boat out far enough to almost take a risk, whether it is the manager, whether it's the players. They seem to consistently get jobs done, whether it's European football, whether it's Champions League football, whether it's top 4, whether it's, getting to, whatever round of a cup, but they just don't go far enough. And that's why the sort of Spurs, trophyless campaign almost goes on, and the sort of joke around them not winning a trophy goes on because, I don't think they have that edge about them, whether it's the players, whether it's the manager, the owners, to say, actually, no, we are going to compete this season properly, genuinely compete, and our ambitions are to finish top 2. If we can't win it, say there's a Arsenal, a City that are unbelievable, another 98 point season for a Liverpool or a City. We want to come second. We want to be the best out of everyone. The best that we can be. So that's my worry with Spurs this season. That they again, they're just pushing through. And I think Mauricio Pochettino did miracles there because he really wanted and cared about the players, the club, to push them to the next level. And I think that season they did. So yeah, I think it's just pure mediocrity, I think.
All right, I'm going to quickly use the bathroom, but just talk about your thoughts on Bayern this season because I think they've been again exceptional.
Yeah, no, I think Brighton have been another side that just play such phenomenal football. They really, really do. And I remember looking forward to Bournemouth against Brighton a few days ago, and I expected Brighton to come and dominate the ball and come play their style of game, but the dedication to pure excellence in every aspect of their game. Whether it's the small little passes or whether it's even throw-in routines or goal kick routines. If you watch a full Brighton game and focus just on Brighton, you realise just how good De Zerbi has actually coached them. They're not just sort of going out with an idea of how they're going to attack the game or how they're going to deal with certain players or how they're going to get their better players into the game. They play as a complete unit, an entire sort of base around, perfection and about, almost getting the numbers up. I know De Zerbi, is a very, very tactical coach, and he almost obsesses over numbers, over statistics, and that shows because on the field they play such an exciting and fluid brand of football that you almost don't think about it. It almost just happens. Um, just naturally to them, and that's a genuine credit to what Brighton, the management and the players are doing, that it almost looks, and when we see Brighton win, they go, oh, Brighton won again. And, a lot of people have Brighton players in their fantasy football because they go, oh, well, Brighton's midfield is fantastic. They always score goals. They always get involved. It's always those 3 or 4 players that are just winning games for them. And it's just happening so frequently that it almost brushes past us. But Brighton have been, I think, the side that if there was almost a, not a fan's favourite, but and also not like a best football, because that would go to the winners essentially of the Premier League. But if we were looking at a prize for the best, club, best well-ranked club on and off the pitch, best football, best philosophy, Brighton win it by a mile. I mean, they have been phenomenal. They really have.
No, I do agree with you. I actually went to watch Liverpool Brighton, and I actually got tickets, but the tickets were in the Brighton end. So I was a Liverpool fan in the Brighton. I had to pretend to be a Brighton fan for 90 minutes. It was torture having to watch my club play so poorly. But Brighton, I think this season have been fantastic. I think Matoma has been one of my favourite players this season. McAllister's been amazing. Caicedo's been amazing. Ferguson, I think, is one of the future players. Brighton have always had problems with strikers. Now they've got Ferguson, who can lead the line. I think he's going to be a star for Ireland in the future. I think Brighton will finish in Europe this season. I don't know where though, but I think they've made humongous progress. And I think if they can get Europa League, they'll attract even more players, and they can really spend in the summer and keep some of their star signings. But in terms of prediction for this game, it's quite hard to predict because Tottenham have the last 2 they've drawn. And of course Brighton have been winning games. Do you know what? I'm actually going to go a bit of a shock result. I'm going to go Tottenham 1, Brighton 2. I think Brighton I have a sneaky feeling Brighton are going to get a win here.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 2-3 Brighton. I think, that I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton just have that edge about them. With that said, I think Spurs will put a performance in. I think we've got ideas, really that there's going to be big changes at Tottenham, whether or not players will be fighting for their places as well. Who knows? I think they will have to put in some huge performances from now to the end of the season. Not even not less for the league table and to finish as highly as they can, but for the players and the career and the future of Tottenham and the changes that look to be imminent as well. So, I think Brighton will have enough. 2-3 I'm going to go for.
Now we're getting on to the big match now, which is, of course, your lot, Bournemouth against Leicester. Big game. Of course, going first with Leicester. Leicester, again, would be another team that have dropped off massively. First part of the season, I thought Danny Ward was terrible, and he's got so bad at the point now where Iverson's taking his place now. And they're still losing games. Like, I've never seen such dominance, not dominance, but in terms of like getting battered. I was watching the Crystal Palace Leicester game, and I thought, Leicester Palace have just snuck it. Maybe they didn't deserve it or whatever. But I looked at the stats, and the Crystal Palace nearly had like 40 shots against Leicester. That is embarrassing. They've been terrible this season. I'm not sure what's been going wrong. And Leicester in the point now where I think they are probably one of the favourites to go down, because I just can't see them win games. I can't see them win games. What's your thoughts been on Leicester this season? Because they've been so bad.
Well, again, I mentioned it a minute ago. There are clubs that are too good to go down. Well, someone has to, and Leicester is another club that is too good to go down. I mean, their training complex is one of the state-of-the-art training complexes. I've been to St George's Park, and that is, I've not been to Leicester's training complex, but it looks almost as good as England's. And when that is the national training ground, it's just unbelievable. And for a club like Leicester to have this, that brand new facility built, and on the pitch to have, their recent successes, obviously not just the title win, but also, genuinely competing against, some top sides like Atletico Madrid and things in the Champions League, and, getting into the knockout stages of the Champions League. It's just unbelievable. And I do think really that this season has been a complete turnaround, and Brendan Rodgers has obviously now, left the club, but he almost lost, the fans from minute one, really. And they have struggled. They, like you say, their worries on the pitch have been, conceding, just leaking goals. But like you mentioned there, and that's I think the key to noticing Leicester's sort of dramatic fall as such is because they, when they lost. I don't know why I can't think of his name in the middle of the midfield. Not N'Golo Kante, but there was someone else they let go. And I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But they let players go, and they instantly just started conceding shots and chances. And like you mentioned, Crystal Palace. I mean, 40 shots for a side like Crystal Palace, who themselves were struggling and have been struggling. That, for me as a Bournemouth fan, there's no more exciting fixture than Leicester away. Potentially Leicester at home. That's the only other game I could see. But it's a 6-pointer, and there's no other way about it. But Bournemouth go into it the massive favourites, and that's an AFC Bournemouth side that are struggling themselves. So it's going to be a very interesting game.
And getting on to you guys now, I've been, as I said in the Twitter DMs, I've been seriously impressed. I was going like, we're probably going to get a 2-0 win against Bournemouth, and bang, Philip Billing scores, and then we cannot do anything. The amount of Van Dijk headers that he tried to put towards goal, everything was just going wrong. I swear to God, Liverpool at 12:30 in that stupid white away kit do not win games. And we've somehow got a curse against Bournemouth, against you lot as well. And I think after the 9-0, you wanted to get a bit of revenge. So it's not been good, but I think Bournemouth this season, you guys have been great. You've now got Neto, who you bought from Bournemouth. I think he's your captain now. You've got Solanke, which we sold. We somehow, I don't know how, we managed to sell that guy for 20 million. But we managed to sell him for 20 million. I think you guys this season have been very good. I think... yes, you've been around the relegation areas, but I don't think you guys have deserved to go down. I think, of course, the change in manager, I think the 9-0 and goal difference hasn't helped at all. I think there's been a few games, we've got a few injuries. I think Neto got injured for a bit as well. And I think you guys deserve to stay up. I think you will stay up. I think you will do well. And as you've said, I see you as massive favourites against Leicester. But now talk to me as you are a Bournemouth fan. What's your thoughts been on your club this season?
Very up and down. I think it's a game that will almost either show the consistencies this season or the deficiencies, because there's been ups and downs, because we've had a season where, like you say, we've lost 9-0, we've lost 4-0, we've lost 3-0 at home to clubs as well. It's been a frustrating season, but also one that actually, as long as we stay up, that's the first goal. That is goal one for the club, and they're on course, I think, to do that. It's not going to be comfortable. I don't think until the end of the season. But this is a massive, massive month for Bournemouth. The 2 home games that have just passed were huge. 3 points out of the 6 there was not bad at all. Fulham and Brighton, 2 fantastic sides, and Leicester are a side that are the complete opposite. So you'd expect to get something from Bournemouth. From Leicester. Apologies, I've got a phone call coming in. I think all in all, it's going to be a very interesting game, and one that I hope Bournemouth can be on the right end of.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of prediction with this game, though, I think you will win. I just don't think Leicester. I think Leicester are going to go down. I'm convinced they're going to go down now because I can't think of anyone who can come in and help them out. Manager-wise,
I think they're struggling.
Yeah, I think they're going down. I think they've got to sign a good keeper. I think their keepers aren't good enough. Their defenders, Fice, I think has been alright, but man scored 2 own goals in one game and literally was playing for Liverpool in that game. Very poor, but I think you'll win this game. I'm actually going to go Leicester 1, Bournemouth 2. I think you'll get 3 points.
Yeah.
What's your prediction?
I hope so.
You think you're going to win? Are you confident?
I want to go into it confident because I think you have to, if you look at the games that are left for Bournemouth, you have to go into chances. If they go out and they prove a point, I think there'll be more than just 3 points. I think they genuinely could, really sort of push together some sort of momentum almost. Mm-hmm. So I'm confident tomorrow. I just hope that, all in all, that they get 3 points. It's the most important thing.
Yeah,
I'll be confident.
I think you will win. I think this game will possibly solidify as Leicester being one of the teams that will go down. Then we've got Southampton, Man City. Southampton again has been a team which I've been feeling they've been doing all right the last few seasons of where they're positioned, but this season, they're 20th. They're going to get Southampton for me 100% going to go down, which I think is crazy to see them going down. But they've had a lot of problems, of course. Hasenhüttl left. They've sold a lot of their good players. They've got some good players there. I think Lavia's going to be one. He's definitely, if they go down, Lavia's gone. They've got some good players. They beat Man City 2-0 in the Carabao Cup, which I think was. They've had some weird managers. I think Jones was a very strange appointment for me for Southampton. Got sacked. What's your thoughts been on Southampton this season? Because I think they're, for me at least, they're favourites to go down.
I think they are. I think they're favourites to finish bottom as well. I think really they've got a very young side. Like you say, Romeo Lavia's been fantastic. That's been a real highlight for them. But then he was out for months and months as well with, I think, a knee injury or some sort of injury. So, they have had players that have had good seasons, and no less than James Ward-Prowse, who I think is one of the best technical midfielders in the league. But, they've struggled to get a side together that can perform at this level, and whether that's down to the recruitment, whether that's down to the managerial side of things, I don't think so. I think I don't think the transfers really set them up ideally, but like you say, I struggle to see their future in the Premier League, and when they went down before, I did think they would struggle, and I think they will again. I think that if they go down, they won't come straight back up. I think they will struggle, and their best players are on the ropes of leaving. So I think they're going to struggle.
100%, because I think if they go down, they're going to lose Lavia. Ward-Prowse will probably want to go back to the Premier League. Their squad will be gone, like majorly gone, and I think they will struggle. In terms next in Manchester City, I think Man City have not been the Man City I've seen this season. A lot of the games this season have actually been played with no fullbacks. guess Aki you could say is a fullback, but they've been playing Stones at right back or Kanji. Sometimes they've even been playing a back three with. I was shocked to see when we played them last week. They actually played Stones as a CDM, which is I've never seen him play as a CDM before. And that was quite ridiculous. But Man City this season, 8 points behind Arsenal. I think they've been transitioning a little bit into playing 2 years of no striker to now playing with the best striker in the world, and having to work into feeding him the ball. I think been transitioning, and of course with Cancelo leaving as well, I think they've been struggling, but I think they will, how bad Man City have been in the league and not being number one, they are still on course to match United and getting a treble, if they're successful, which I don't think they will win the Champions League though, but I think they will, but I don't think they will win the league. But what's your thoughts been on Man City this season, because they've not looked the Man City of old?
Yeah, no, they haven't. I think they've been a Manchester City side that is going through a transition themselves. I mean, they, like you say, Cancelo is no longer with them. They've gone through a change where Raheem Sterling's left. Obviously, Aguero has left the club. Ferran Torres, another player that's left. So, I know that Torres isn't necessarily not really a key player, but they've had players leave and players that have come in that need to fit in their new players into a new league. Erling Haaland has just hit the ground running straight away, but Julian Alvarez, it hasn't really worked out perfectly for him, mainly because I think of the bloke that is in his place. But they've had their own little battles and worries this season. But I think overall that as long as they have success in terms of silverware, like you say, whether it's the Champions League, the Premier League, it will be a successful season for them. I think they'll go all the way in the Premier League to the final day. Who wins it could be anyone's guess at this stage, between the two of them. But I think, I think they've had a good season. They just haven't had an unbelievable season, which we've gone, almost come to expect from Manchester City. All
right, because you need to go in a minute. Let's quickly do this score prediction, and then just give me your thoughts, your score prediction for Liverpool Arsenal. Score prediction for Southampton Man City. What's your score prediction?
Well, Southampton Manchester City, I'm going to go for. I think it's going to be a massive score, this one. I'm going to go 5-0 City.
Not surprised there. And what about Liverpool Arsenal? Do you think Liverpool will help City win the league, or do you think Liverpool will help Arsenal continue?
I think this is going to be a really interesting game, and one that will sort of really determine who wins this league. Arsenal, like you say, Liverpool almost lose out either way, because if they beat Arsenal, City are going to win the league, and there's been a big rivalry there, for the years. So, or recently anyway, more than not. But yeah, this is going to be a big game, I think, for Arsenal. If they can get through Anfield, they're winning the league for me, and I think they will. I think it depends what Liverpool we get. If Liverpool turn up, I think there's going to be a real battle, and I think it will be a real crunch game. If Liverpool turn up and it's not the Liverpool that we sort of have seen through the last few years, which it hasn't been for the majority of this season, I think Arsenal will absolutely roll them. So I'm going to go for 4-0 Arsenal, just because I genuinely, I know you're not going to be too pleased with that, but I genuinely believe that Arsenal will turn up and go straight on the front foot, and it will either be a very, very close game, or Liverpool will get battered. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it depends what Liverpool we get. And if Liverpool aren't at their absolute peak, I think Arsenal will have a walk in the park.
No, I do agree with you. I'm not that shocked you said 4-0, because I do think Liverpool will get battered. Thank you so much for coming on, Ollie. Do you want to let the people know about what you're doing on your channel and stuff like that? As I said, you literally built a TV studio in your house, which is I've never seen anyone do before. So do you want to let people know about what you got coming up and about your channel a little bit before you go?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed it, and yeah, apologies, I've got to run off and
No,
get
no
some things
worries.
done. But I really enjoy talking through all the games with you, and always happy to come on and talk about all the big leagues and things as well. That's pretty much what I do on my own channel as well. Just talk football, enjoy the football that we get to watch, talk through watch-alongs and preview shows, all that sort of thing. And at the minute, it's all gone a bit quiet because I'm doing a documentary, which is going to be released at the start of May. That's called Beyond Dean Court, and it's about all of the stories of AFC Bournemouth's Vitality Stadium, which is not the usual stadium. Let's just say that in the Premier League. So, yeah, that's what's coming up on my channel. But like I say, thanks for having me on the show. I
No
really
worries,
appreciate
man.
it.
No worries. And hope we do more shows in the future, and hope the documentary goes well. And I'm looking forward to watch it.
Much appreciated, mate. Thank you very much. And
Cheers.
yeah, good to be on the show.
Cheers. All right, people. That was Olly May. Fantastic YouTuber. Like literally one of the best football YouTubers I've seen. Very, very, very talented individual, people. This guy's a very, very, very talented YouTuber. So if you like watch-alongs in a proper studio, that kind of content, subscribe to Olly May now. We'll have him on for more Premier League previews, Champions League, that kind of stuff, and he'll be doing the same on his channel. That's going to be kind of cool. We'll move on to some more games now, from my point of view. Wolves Chelsea, I said 0-0. Tottenham Bayern, I said Bayern will win 2-1. Leicester Bournemouth, I said Bournemouth will win 2-1. Southampton Man City, though, I'm going to go a bit like Olly. I'm going to go Southampton 0, Man City 4. They're going to get battered, people. They're going to get battered, Southampton. They're gone. Move on to Leeds Crystal Palace. Sebastian, do you want to jump on for the last, the Liverpool part? Do you want me to send you a link? Would you like to jump on for the Liverpool part? Let me know in the chat. But going on to Leeds and Crystal Palace. Of course, Leeds are starting to win games now. They're looking more comfortable. Crystal Palace, of course, still have no manager. They're looking alright. Beating Leicester last minute, having a ridiculous amount of shots. If we look at that game, Leicester versus Palace, let's have a look at the stats. They had 31 shots, 9 on target. That's a battering. Should have probably scored way more goals, but they couldn't. But 31 shots, 9 on target by Crystal Palace against Leicester City. That's fantastic. It's fantastic. It really is fantastic, people. And we look at Leeds last game. Leeds were beat Nottingham Forest 2-1. So both teams come from winning performances. It's going to be a good game. It really is going to be a good game. In terms of this prediction, I'm going to go Leeds to win 2-1. And now we go on to the biggest game of the weekend. This game could help determine a title race in terms of, will it be Arsenal? Will it be Man City? One second. Yeah, so let's continue. So big game. Liverpool Arsenal. I'm not looking forward to this game. I think we're going to lose. I honestly think we're going to lose. another game at Anfield. We've not looked good. We've lost. So, lost to Bournemouth. Lost to Real Madrid. Lost to Man City. Drew to Chelsea. That's 4 in all competitions, 0 wins. That is embarrassing. Embarrassing performances by Liverpool. Embarrassing. People, make sure to subscribe, leave a like. Arsenal, they just can't stop winning. They've been fantastic. One of the clubs I've really enjoyed watching this season, because I do want Arsenal to win the league. But I'm sorry, Arsenal. Liverpool need to win and we need to win. But let's quickly go into my score predictions and lineup predictions. My lineup predictions is Alisson, Gomez, Van Dijk, Konate, Robertson, Fabinho. This is hard, man. The midfield, I don't really want to play Jordan Henderson. Do you know what? I'm going to go Fabinho, Curtis Jones, and... No, I'm going to go Jones, Fabinho. I'll go Jones, Fabinho. No, I'll go Fabinho, Jones, Henderson. Okay, I'll go Fabinho, Jones, Henderson. And front 3, Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, and Mohamed Salah. Score prediction for me: Liverpool 1, Arsenal 3. That's my prediction. Liverpool to lose 3-1. I cannot see us getting any sort of win this game. We've been embarrassing this season, and we're going to get embarrassed on Sunday. This is not good enough. We're going to get embarrassed. I'm not looking forward to it. Not looking forward to it, but people, make sure to subscribe, leave a like. We were on 14 likes. Can we get to 15 likes? Quickly, people, I'm going to let you know what we've got planned tomorrow in terms of watch-alongs. Here we go. So we will be doing the 3 o'clock show, the Saturday live score show. We'll be covering Wolves. Actually, no, we'll be covering Tottenham v Brighton. So that's the game we'll be covering tomorrow, Tottenham v Brighton. We'll also be looking at Wolves, Chelsea, Fulham, West Ham, Brentford, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest and Leicester, Bournemouth. We'll be covering those games tomorrow on the channel on a Saturday live score show. And then we'll be doing Southampton, Man City at 5:30. And then we'll be doing Liverpool, Arsenal Sunday. So that is, we'll be doing all Premier League this weekend. So that is the schedule for the Liverpool channel. I've got to go now, people. Got to get ready to go to my friend's gig tonight. Thank you all for watching. It's been Jersey Boy on World of Football, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the watch-alongs. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time for more.